we are going to talk about a new type of poem today. This poem is often referred to as the cousin of the haiku. We have talked about haikus before. Can we review, what do we know about haikus? Yes,
It's a three-line poem, which the first line has 5 syllables, second line has 7 syllables, and the third line once again has 5 syllables.
Good. So it's a 3-line poem, right? And each of the lines has a certain number of syllables. Do we know where that poem is from? Asia, yeah, specifically?
Is it China?
It is not China, do we know? Japan, very good. So this next poem is cousins with the Japanese haiku. This one is a Korean shijo. So very similarly to the haiku, the shijo asks you to write a 3-line poem with a set number of syllables in each line. We are going to go over the form of the poem first. It's a little bit more complex than the haiku, so stick with us, right, and bear with us as we introduce the form to you. Then we're going to talk about the themes.
Right.
And so we've talked about before, too, how every poem that we write should have a story and it should have structure. First, we're going to talk about the structure, then we're going to talk about
the different
story.
themes. And the thing about the shijo is it has a twist at the end. So there's a little bit different take on the shijo as opposed to the haiku. And we're going to learn about that right now.
Yes. Okay, so we're saying here, though less familiar than its Japanese cousin haiku, Korean shijo has a similarly rich heritage. Like the haiku, it employs 3 lines for a total syllable count between 44 and 46. Cassie, remind us, the haiku is how many?
17 total.
17 total, good. So here we're working with 44 to 46. Significantly longer, right? Okay, so this first one, let's learn a little bit more about it. Kelsey, would you read this first bullet to us?
The shijo is a traditional 3-line Korean poetic form, typically exploring cosmological, metaphysical, or pastoral themes.
Good, and so we're not going to freak out about that yet. We'll get to those themes in a little bit, but just know that whatever you write, it has to be on one of those 3 themes. Keep going.
Organized both technically and thematically by line and syllable count, shijo are expected to be phrasal and lyrical, as they are first and foremost meant to be songs.
Good, let's talk about this word here, phrasal. What does that mean to us? When we hear the word phrase or phrasal, what do we think?
Quote.
A quote. Good. What else are we thinking?
Phrase.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Something people say, like, cats meow.
Yeah, phrases, groups of words, right? Is it a complete sentence?
Not usually.
Right, not usually. We're just talking about groups of words. These little expressions, kind of like what Cassie was saying, right? So think of phrases, think of groups of words. So it's phrasal, but it's also lyrical. Okay, what do we think of when we hear lyrical?
Songs.
Songs. Okay, so what does that mean, songs?
Like country, hip hop, etc.
Good, so there's different types of genres of songs. Good. What else do we think when we think lyrical?
I also think song, the words of the song.
Right, what about the words? Meaning. Talk more.
Also like rhythm too.
Good. So we think rhythm, we think beat, right? We think of that in poems just like we think of it as in songs. What else about the words that are in songs? Trevor?
They tell a story.
They tell a story. Good. So there has to be some sort of point, some sort of story. And like Miss Hamilton was saying, your story has to have some sort of twist at the end. Okay, so your shijo is phrasal, right? Groups of words, groups of expressions, and it's lyrical. So it sounds like lyrics. There's a point to it. It has a melody, right? It is a song. Okay, so let's keep going here and talk about the form. Trevor, would you read that for us?
Sijo are written in either 3 lines or 6 lines. If the poem is 3 lines, each line will average 14 to 16 syllables for a total of 44 to 46 syllables in the entire poem.
Good, so let's look at this. So we've got a 3-line poem. Each line averages 14 to 16 syllables per line. What does that mean to you, average? Could be more or could be less, but on average, right, it's going to be between 14 and 16. Compare that to the haiku.
A lot longer.
A lot longer. What else?
The haiku is a set number.
Right, the haiku is a set number, whereas here we get a range. Okay, good. So, Jen, would you get us this one right here?
Each line is written in 4 groups of syllables. Each group should be clearly
Differentiated, yeah.
differentiated from other groups, yet still follow together in a single line.
Okay, let's look at this. So each line is written in 4 groups of syllables. If you're looking at a line of poetry, how would you know that one group starts or one group ends, or that there's a difference between the groups?
A pause.
A pause. How would you see that in a poem?
Comma.
A comma, or
Enter.
not necessarily an enter, because we're talking about the same
A
line.
dash.
A dash. What else? An ellipses. A dot, dot, dot. What else?
A colon,
A
semicolon.
colon, a semicolon, or
Period.
a period or parentheses, right? We could keep going on and on and on. So one way that you could differentiate groups from other groups is punctuation. Let's look at this example right here. Your time's up, the prison guard yells. Get back inside. Slowly, I do. How many groups are there? 4, right? Our first group is what?
Your time's up.
Good. Second grouping?
The prison guard yells.
The prison guard yells, right? The third is?
Get back inside.
And then finally, the last one is slowly, I do. So one way that you could differentiate groups from other groups is punctuation. There, I think, is a really clear example. Questions on that? Okay, Mike, would you read us this next one?
When written in English, Shijo may be written in 6 lines. If you write your poem in 6 lines, each line contains 2 syllable groupings instead of 4.
Okay, this is where it starts to get complicated, right? Haiku, it's very simple. 3 lines, set number of syllables. Shijo, though, we have a little bit of choice here. You could either write your poem in 3 lines, or you could write your poem in 6 lines. How are you going to decide? Agran, what are you thinking? How are you going to decide if you're going to write your poem in 3 lines versus 6?
I really don't know.
You don't know. Can we help him?
By the groupings.
Perhaps, right? So maybe you draft a poem and you look, where are the groupings? It might naturally fit with 3 versus 6. How else could we decide if we're going to write it in 3 lines or 6? Cassie, go for it.
If you write your first line and you can determine from then, like, okay, does it work best if it's going to be 4 groupings or 2 groupings?
Right. I think that that's a great way to start. Just draft something and see where naturally do my groupings fall. How does the form work with my poem? Perfect. Okay, so if you're going to do the 6 lines, each line contains 2 syllable groupings. Here's our example. No sounds, dot, 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 but shadows of night. Clearly, we can see the 2 different groupings there, correct? Great. Okay, we're going to scroll down a little bit. Kristen, we're right here on this one. You got it for us?
Liberties may be taken with the number of syllables per group as long as the total syllable count for the line remains the same.
Somebody paraphrase it for us. What does that mean? Yeah, Trevor.
So like there can be a variety of syllables per line as long as the total goes to 44 to 46.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about if you decide to do a 3-line shijo.
Tell me.
Perfect.
Alright, the first line is usually written in a 3-4-4-4 grouping pattern. The first line also states the theme of the poem or a situation generally introduced.
Yeah, it's generally introduced there in the first line of the poem. 3-4-4-4 grouping. What are they talking about there? What is that?
Syllables.
Syllables, right? Good. And then how do we differentiate groups from other groups?
We just talked about it.
Dashes. Good.
Punctuation's one way, and another way might be?
dashes, what else?
Dot, 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 right? We've got all these punctuation choices to differentiate groups from other groups. I think another way that you can differentiate groups from other groups is by theme or by general breaks in tone, or we were talking about before how they are lyrical, right? Sometimes you can feel the rhythm of your poem, and that might be one way that you can differentiate groups from other groups. Okay, so we're going to introduce our theme as well in the first line. That's what Ms. Hamilton's going to talk about in a little bit. The second line... You want to get it for us, Gabby?
The second line is usually written in a 3-4-4 pattern similar to the first and is an elaboration of the first line's theme or situation development.
Right. So first line, we're generally introducing our theme. The second line, we're developing that more. We're telling more of that story. All right, the third line, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Jake, you got it for us?
The third line is divided into two sections. The first section, the counter theme, is grouped as 3 to 5, while the second part, considered the conclusion of the poem, is written as 4 to 3.
Yeah, keep going.
Oh, the counter theme is called the twist, which is usually a surprise in the meaning, sound, or other device.
Yes. So in your last line, your first grouping is going to have some sort of twist in the poem. What does that mean to you when we say twist?
Don't expect it.
It's unexpected. Good. What else could a twist be? Could be unexpected. It could be... Yeah?
It could be like so easy you don't think it'll happen, but it does.
Right, right, good. Some sort of maybe irony or some sort of stylistic device there. It could be shocking, it could be surprising, it could be witty, it could be funny, right? Think about how are you going to twist your poem in that third line. And then finally the last grouping in the third line, you sort of tie it all together and you end it. So let's take a look at an example Shijo. This is a 3-line Shijo, and what we have on the right-hand side here are the syllable groupings.
Called Song of My 5 Friends. You ask how many friends I have? Water and stone, bamboo and pine. The moon rising over the eastern hill is a joyful camaraderie. Besides these 5 companions, what other pleasure should I ask?
Perfect. What do we notice? 3 lines. Good. What else?
There's a storyline to it.
Right. So not only is there structure, but there's also that story, right? So if we think of the plot cycle, we've got that going on here. Questions on the form. You have choices, and it gets a little bit tricky, but I think we will definitely get what you need to do here. So let's look at now, Mrs. Hamilton, the themes, right?
Yep.
So I think, yep, that one. Perfect. So the first thing that I wanted to do was connect Shijo to other things that we have done before. So I said, you know, we've all done haiku. Let's remember what's about the haiku. And so we said it had a certain number of lines, it had a certain number of syllables. Everyone feels like, I think in my class, that I can do a haiku, right? I can manage that. And so I wanted them to think, you can manage the haiku just like you can manage the Shijo. So I was trying to sort of boost their self-esteem and their confidence, as well as trigger their prior knowledge of the haiku. So we did that, and then we went into the form. So that's really how, it's important to know how the Shijo is structured, I thought, before you begin. So we went over, you have the 3-line option, or you have the 6-line option. We also talked about the different groupings within each line. We spent some time talking about how would you differentiate one group from another group. I thought that the students would really struggle with that, but they seemed to get it, that okay, I could group it in phrases, I could group it by punctuation, whatever it might be. So we talked about that, and then we talked about the different theme options. We went through each of the 3 different theme options. We also gave some example poems for each of those themes. So every year we're going to send these pieces off to different competitions. Last year, Josh Deball was one of the winners in the Shijo competition. This year, I just heard from Lucy this morning that they're upping the prize money, and that first place for the Shijo poem is $500 this year. So that is a huge prize amount.
Yes, it is. Here's Josh's. It's called Paranoia. Arrive at dusk, no light in sight. Lock the doors and check them twice. No sounds, but shadows of night. Tapping, hysteria, and fright. It was my mother, laundry night. Scare me? It might end my life.
Yeah, why? What do you think, Mike?
What?
What do you think? You're going like this. Why?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, why?
Because I like the rhymes.
Right? Sight, night, fright, tonight. The rhyme is strong. Not a lot of times you see rhyme in Shijo, but feel free to play around with that. I think that makes it more lyrical, right? If we think of songs, oftentimes they have a rhyme pattern that goes throughout the entire song. What else do we think of Josh's?
What about the content? All right, we look at right here, these first 5 lines. How's he feeling?
Scared.
Can you visualize, can you feel how he's feeling? All right, and then what's the twist?
His mom was laundry.
So here he is, he's afraid, he's petrified, and then all of a sudden, scare me. It's laundry night.
Why do you think this was chosen as a winner? Why do you think this one was chosen as a winner?
Does a good job of painting a picture.
Yeah, visual. Shows instead of tells. Why else?
Look at the different punctuation that he uses. The pauses that he has.
Cassie, go for it.
I think one of the reasons he wanted was a twist. You're expecting something like a bit frightening, and all of a sudden it's just so silly that kind of just makes you laugh.
Right. And it's something, I think it's super specific to Josh, right? We talk about how good writing makes us think differently, makes us feel differently. Good writing is something only you could write. This is something only Josh could write. It's specific, it's an original idea, it's funny.
Next one. All right. Airplanes arc with contrails like ivory streams through blue ground. Fearless, I rise towards them. Wrap my fingers around their wings. Your time's up, the prison guard yells. Get back inside. Slowly, I do.
Yeah. What do we notice about that one?
Big twist.
Big twist. What else? Talk to me about language choices.
But here we're talking about ivory streams, beautiful things, blue ground, wings. You're picturing this like serene place, peaceful place, beautiful. And where is this person?
Prison.
That's the twist. He's in prison. Or she.
Yeah.
And look at, here are the 6 lines. Here are the 3, giving you the 2 different options. Longer lines, short.
Yep. But still, the syllable count is going to be the same, yep, for both of those poems, no matter the form. I just think the language choices here are so nice. We've got really strong verbs, right? Wrap, rise. The strong action verbs are nice. I also like the alliteration. Wrap, wings, right? See what you can do to still include stylistic devices, even though we have such a truncated working space, and even though there are so many rules and requirements put on us, you can still play around with things like strong verbs, imagery, metaphors, similes, all of that stuff. Okay, so we've got the form down. Now we need to talk about the themes.
Does anyone have any questions about the form so far? All right. Pretty easy, self-explanatory, right? So now we're going to talk about themes. There are 3 Shijo themes. All right. The first one is cosmological. All right. When you hear cosmological, what do you think of right away? Ben, cosmological, what do you think of?
I don't know, Cosmo, kind of like stars.
It's like stars. Okay, what else? Nick, what do you think of when you think of cosmological? We have stars.
Yeah, say it. Nighttime.
Nighttime. All right, let's take a look at this. The cosmological argument is an argument for the existence of a first cause to the universe, and by extension is often used as an argument for the existence of an unconditioned or supreme being, usually then identified as God. The general form of the cosmological argument in the following form. 1. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. 2, the universe began to exist. And 3, therefore the universe had a cause. There must be something to explain why the universe exists. So you're probably thinking this is kind of deep. So
Very deep.
So what Ms. Jorgensen and I thought, well, let's put an example there that kind of portrays what cosmological is all about. Looking at this example, who would like to read that? All right, let's see here. Kelsey, can you read that example, please?
The moon interrupts, the stars wink, the inky sky is their play field. In China, grandfather climbed mountains to greet the escorts of night. Through now in America, he still salutes the moon and the stars.
Yeah. Excellent. So when we take a look at that, what's cosmological about that? What words can we pick out that represent the theme of cosmological? Okay, Spence, what are some words that represent that theme?
Moon.
Moon, good. What else?
Stars.
Stars.
Good.
And
Night.
night and sky and is that it?
Yes.
I think so too. I
But
think
then
that
it repeats it.
yeah.
Moon and stars at the end.
And what a great stylistic device, right? We've talked about this before. Tying the end back to the beginning. They have done that here with the moon and the stars. Moon and the stars. Right? It makes the poem feel nice and complete, nice and tight.
There's a metaphor in the very first line. What is it? What human-like characteristic do you see there?
Wink.
Wink. The stars wink. All right?
Right? They're personifying those stars. And they're even personifying the moon, right? The moon interrupts. Human-like
All right.
qualities.
Okay. Any questions on that? That makes sense, does it not? All right. So, what is the first theme, Mike? What's the first theme that we just went over?
Oh, cosmological.
Excellent. All right. This is the second one. It's called the metaphysical. The metaphysical poetry is concerned with the whole experience of man. The poetry is about the profound areas of experience, about love, about man's relationship with God, the eternal perspective, and about pleasure, learning, and art. They are brief but intense meditations characterized by striking use of wit, irony, and wordplay. Okay? Metaphysical, the whole experience of man. All right? It could be nature, it could be really anything that is about love, art, maybe learning a lesson in life. We have a good
And this, when
example.
you read this too, Mrs. Hamilton, I was thinking, brief but intense meditations. To me, that sounds like a song, right? It's a brief meditation. And if we're thinking about how they should be lyrical, that again, we're having that same theme sort of drilled home to us.
And I think that the appropriate person for this would be Tommy. I think you should read this one based on your last piece you did write about. Okay, the veteran.
Man and his rifle alone in a field of despair. His destiny speaks to him as bullets cut through broken trees. Fallen brothers cry from graves. He soon joins their eternal darkness.
Now that is intense, very descriptive. Let's pick out some words here that, well, first of all, what words make you visualize this piece? Like you can actually picture him in the field. Ben, what words?
Bullets cut through the broken trees.
Yes. Cullen, what else? Colin. What words make you visualize that you're in this field?
The fallen brothers crying from the grave.
Yes.
Isn't that so good? And it's a twist, too, from the other two lines.
So it starts a man alone with his rifle, ending with fallen brothers cry from their graves. He soon joins them.
Yeah.
Powerful.
And again, you know, if we're thinking about the theme, we talked about here, eternal perspective, and here they've got this eternal darkness. What does that mean, eternal? Forever and ever and ever and ever, yeah? And when we think of eternal, what do we think of? Death, right? Or heaven, or hell, or whatever happens for eternity. What else? Forever, right, forever and ever.
All right. Notice, brief, intense. All this was done in 3 lines. All right. We have our 2 themes so far. Will, what's our first theme? Someone help Will out. What's our first theme? Good.
Cosmological, good.
Second theme? All right, very
Metaphysical, very good. And our third and final theme that you can choose from.
All right, and this is the pastoral theme. All right, it is pastoral. From pastor, it's Latin for shepherd. It refers to a literary work dealing with shepherds and rustic life. Pastoral poetry is highly conventionalized. It presents an idealized rather than realistic view of rustic life. So here's some common topics for the pastoral poetry. They could include love and seduction, the value of poetry, death and mourning, the corruption of the city or court versus the purity of idealized country life, or politics. I mean, that's a wide variety right there.
Yeah.
Right? From love to death to corruption to politics. I mean, you can really pretty much fit anything into those themes. Kathleen, can you read the example? Let me just move it up a little bit so you can see it. All right, what's our example?
Rustling fabrics, I explore seas of tweed, paisley blouses, and plaid. Tangible remembrances, your days of youth have become mine. Closed in strength, now you chase no trends. Wrinkled, gray, lovely threads.
Wow. So, what does this mean? Brian Willman, okay? Rustling fabrics, I explore seas of tweed, paisley, blouses, and plaid. Are they young, old?
Old.
Yes, how'd you know that?
Oh, because the second line it says there, remember the days of youth. So.
Good.
I think of also, when we think of these fabrics, when we think of tweed, when we think of paisley, when we think of plaid, I mean, do you think of young people?
No.
No, right? We think of older people, and that definitely fits with the theme, this rustic view of life. This, I mean, we think of farmers sort of being rustic, wearing plaid, right? Mm-hmm. That definitely fits with the theme.
Look at the last line, clothed in strength. Now you chase no trends. Does it matter anymore at that age?
Right. And that also works as the twist, right? At the beginning, they're exploring all these fabrics, they're thinking about them, and then the twist is, hey, guess what? It really doesn't matter what I wear. I think this one is really strong, too, with stylistic devices. Can we pick out, what is the author doing here that makes the poem well written? Cassie, go for it.
They're using a lot of descriptive words to help you get an idea of what's going on. Like you can imagine it in your head.
Right, again, it's visual, right? We can see it. What else are we noticing? Trevor?
It's a story anyone can connect to.
Yeah, and I think it's really, the key is a story, right? Again, we think of that plot arc, that plot cycle. What story will you tell? Other stylistic devices we're picking up on? Tweed, paisley blouses, and plaid.
Alliteration.
Gray, lovely threads. Rule of thirds. And what were you saying too?
Alliteration.
And
Paisley,
alliteration. Paisley and plaid, yes. So think about story, think about structure, think about stylistic devices. We also need to think about the theme. Well, I think in creative writing, I have a lot of students with different special needs. And so they partnered me with Heidi, who works with students with special needs in our learning center. And so we co-teach the entire class together. And I think it's exciting because we have different personalities. We're able to feed off of each other. We're able to connect with kids more. Just because there's two of us, we can have more one-on-one time with each of the students.
As a special educator, I'm able to bring that extra support for Liz, and it's been wonderful because she's welcomed me into her classroom and has treated me as an equal, and we just have really been able to expand the class and meet the needs of all the students, not just the special education students. And then when this opportunity about writing the Sijo contest came up, Liz and I were like, let's do it.
Yeah. It's perfect. I mean, the structure is really nice for the students, so it gives them sort of a plan. Here's how to attack the poem. And then with the themes, there is some restrictions with the theme, but I think more than that, it allows for almost all topics.
All
and
topics,
that really excites the kids. That yeah, there is this structure, but I can write about almost anything in my Sijo poem.
And I think that when you first see the parameters and the themes and the structure, you're overwhelmed and you're like, oh my gosh. And the students are like, I can't do this. But when you break it down and you go through the themes and you provide us an example, which we did, I think it really hits home and makes it easier for each student. And we kind of saw that today. At first you could see in their eyes, they're like, what? We got to write this? How many syllables? And then once we broke it down in the themes, they were able to brainstorm and it made it easier for them.
Then we asked the kids to get out their devices, create a document, and then they wrote down the 3 themes: cosmological, pastoral, and metaphysical. And then they came up with an idea. So if I were to write my poem on the cosmological theme, what would my poem be about? What would happen in my story? So I encouraged them to write 2 or 3 sentences describing what would happen. I also encouraged them to include the twist in each story as well as the point of their poem. I think that that's important for them to think about. Why am I writing this Sijo? Yeah, it's for my teacher. Yeah, it's for the competition. But what really do I want my reader to get out of that? Then, after every student came up with one idea for each of the themes, we called on some students to share their story ideas. For kids who are still struggling, for kids who didn't have any ideas, I thought the share out would help them. Oh, I never thought about that idea. Maybe I could do it. Whatever. Okay, so I think what we want them to do are grab their devices.
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead, open up your device. We're going to start a new document. Let's title it Sijo. What we're going to have you do, we have about a little less than 10 minutes remaining in first period. We want you to come up with a story idea for each of the 3 themes. So maybe what you do is you write cosmological and then a dash, and then come up with maybe 1 or 2 lines. If you were going to write a Sijo on the theme of cosmological, what story would you tell? What would it be about? 1 or 2 sentences only. Then you'll go on to the next one, which was metaphysical. And then finally the last one, which is pastoral. So let's take the 7 remaining minutes, come up with a story idea for each of the themes. What questions are there? Okay.
Okay, by now we should have something down for each of the themes. All right, and walking around, Ms. Jorgensen and I noticed a couple interesting ones that I would hope that you would share with us. Who's our first one, Ms. Jorgensen?
Well, for the cosmological, we thought that Kelsey had a great idea for a theme topic. So if you were going to write your Sijo on the cosmological theme, what story idea do you have?
I would have said like the universe is so unknown and it exists so we can explore it.
Yeah. So all of this unknown stuff just existing for us to explore it. I like that idea. Right? It's specific. It also is, it's an idea that I haven't really thought a lot about before, right? And that's good writing, making us think differently. Have you thought at all about the twist?
Not really. I don't know yet.
That might be something to play around with, but that's a great...
But it's vague enough where she could do anything with that twist, so that was good.
Yeah, very good idea. And then finally, Jake, you also had a great idea for the pastoral theme.
The old simple life in Iowa.
Yeah, the old simple life in Iowa. What experience do you have with that?
Both of my parents grew up there, and we went down there like almost every single summer to visit my great grandma and stuff.
Why do you think it's a good idea to interject your personal experience, your personal story into your Sijo?
It's unique.
Right, something only you could write. Why else, Kathleen, should we use our personal experiences, our personal stories in Sijo?
Because you know more about it than anyone else.
Right, you are the owner of that story, of that idea. You know more about it than anyone else. It's going to be probably more specific, more interesting, if it's something that you really are connected to. Okay, so I think what we want to do now is have them decide on one particular theme. So look at your list. Which one story idea are you most attracted to at this point? If you want to change your story idea later, totally fine, but just for today, choose one topic that you want to work with. So once you have your theme and your topic, right? So maybe you're doing bullying or you're doing Iowa life. The next thing we want to think about is your story. What's the point of your Sijo poem? Is it going to be to inform? Is it going to be to entertain? Is it going to be to persuade? Is it going to be using wit or irony or whatever? Think about the plot cycle, right? You need some sort of introduction, you need some sort of rising action that's going to grab your reader, and then we have a climax, right? Probably some sort of twist there, and then you conclude your poem. So think about on your sheet here, let's add a few more lines. Map out your story. Don't worry about the syllable count yet. Don't worry about the line count yet. Just get your story idea down. So let's take maybe 10-ish minutes, map out your story. What's going to happen, what's going to be your point, and what is your twist? So today, I really did not want my students to worry about the structure. I just wanted them to get as many original ideas down as they could. Once they had their 3 different ideas, I asked them to focus on one specific idea, and I wanted them to flesh that out. So we came up with some specific phrases that went along with their poem. My hope is that on the next class, on Thursday, that the kids will then be able to reference some of those phrases and directly use them in their poems. So I was encouraging them, hey, come up with some strong action verbs, use some stylistic devices, think about similes, metaphors, alliteration, personification to describe the instance that you have in sentence form. So I'm sort of transitioning them from going into sentence form into the Sijo structure that we'll do more of on Thursday. These are looking really good, Mrs. Hamilton, yes? Yeah. I'm noticing that some people are struggling with the twist. Can somebody give us some advice? How did you come up with your twist? Brian, help us out. How did we come up with a twist for yours?
I was thinking like I could have like a group of friends playing, and then like when, or like at the end I'll like tell that it's actually an old man. Like you'll think it's like a little kid in the beginning, but it's actually an old man playing.
Yeah, very good. So the exact opposite of what you're thinking. So if your poem's about a little kid, well then at the end twist and it's actually an old man, right? The opposite. Kristen, you came up with a great twist. How did that process work for you?
Well, I took the idea of love being the opposite of seduction in a way, and so I used love in the beginning and the twist being seduction.
Right, I think that's a great suggestion. Think of your topic, right? My topic is love. And then what would I say the opposite of love is? And you defined that as seduction. And so then that is your twist at the end. Another great suggestion. So as we're thinking, make sure that you're including that twist. Let's give you maybe another 5 minutes to really hammer out your story. Don't worry about structure.
Right, or syllables right now,
Right.
just write. And then we can always tweak that. All right? All right, so let's see where you're at here.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about what is the twist and how do you come up with the twist? Like, what is your thought process? And I think some kids gave some great ideas that they were thinking of the opposite, right? So I came up with this idea of love. What do I see as the opposite of love? That's going to be my twist. Okay, so Mrs. Hamilton and I were walking around looking at some interesting story ideas. We just want to spend the last few minutes here to give you the opportunity to share your story idea with us. Tell us what your theme is, what your story idea is, and then what the twist is.
Can I take the first one?
Please.
All right, Sam. All right, what's your theme?
Like the Dust Bowl.
Okay, is it the cosmological, metaphysical, or pastoral?
It's a pastoral.
It's a pastoral.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you say it's pastoral?
Because it's like from the past, from history.
Good. So read it nice and loud so everyone can hear.
Okay. Clouds fill the ominous sky, whispering winds swoosh out of nowhere. Dust filters falling throughout the sky. Dirt consumes my lungs, shortness of breath.
gasping and choking for words. I need to get inside. I stumble upon a tombstone. I look to see it's my mother's name.
That's so good.
Isn't that good?
Yeah, what about that do we like?
Besides everything.
Right. Good, Trevor.
The ending is really unexpected.
Totally unexpected. And I liked how, too, you just got all of your ideas down, right? We're not really feeling constricted right now by the form. We're just trying to get the story idea down. Very good, right? So visual, we can picture. She's laying there watching the stars as they start falling literally on her, right? And then they also have the senses going on. You hear the sounds of the sirens, which are nice.
The flashes.
Yeah.
Leaving the trap house, chased by flashes of red and blue, screaming my name. On the run, sweating, scared, and aware of my beating heart. There's nowhere to turn, being cornered like a caged animal. They yell my name again, this time a woman's voice. I wake up, my mom is yelling time for school.
What happened at the end? I missed it.
My mom was yelling time for school when I wake up.
Yes, and we think at the beginning, what's happening?
Getting chased by cops.
Right, getting chased by cops. Very intense.
Very good. And then, Trevor, are you done with yours? Would you mind sharing?
I only have 5 lines.
Well,
but
that's okay. You only need 6.
Well,
first of all, which theme do you have?
Pastoral.
Okay, good.
Alright. Nature's beauty is breathtaking. Water shimmers, reflecting sunlight like a mirror. Clouds glow white as snow. Pure beauty at its finest. It's interrupted. Her smile, angelic. And then, I don't have anything.
So you have some rhymes in there. All right, can you repeat the lines that you rhymed?
Clouds glow white as snow.
So we want to think about, too, if you're going to play with the lyrical form, right? If we're going to have some rhyme, think about what your pattern's going to be. How are you going to continue it throughout the entire shijo so that they know it was an intentional stylistic device and not just like a mistake thrown in there? What was the twist?
He didn't think of it yet, right?
Okay. Do we have any ideas?
Well, I was gonna start out like talking about like how nature's beauty is like the most powerful form, and then I was gonna switch it to like a girl for the love thing.
Then he finally met a girl.
Yeah!
The love of his life, and she becomes the most beautiful thing.
I love it. I love it. Very good.
Yes.
Now, Kristen, you're a little nervous, right? Because you're taking a risk with your topic.
Yeah.
But that's what good writing is, right? And sometimes we take a risk and we fail, and other times we take a risk and it really pays off.
Yes.
You've got a creative idea? Let's hear it.
So what's the theme?
It's pastoral.
Okay, pastoral. All right, go for it.
You want me to read it?
Shh. If you feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to share it.
I don't know if I should.
You don't know if you should.
Yeah, why not?
Yes.
Take a risk.
He smiled. Her eyes sparkled. She moved in closer, hair tickling his face. His excitement was clear, salivating like a dog. Shedding her skin, she winked. He put $1 in her strap. She slithered away. He would never see her again. The next girl came along.
A risk, right?
Yes!
Total risk. But I think if we're talking about this idea of love and what do we think love should be, you took a twist on that.
And her strap, she slithered away.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. So today was just about learning about the form of shijo and the different theme options that you have. Next class, we're going to come back to these poems and we're going to talk more about how can you get your story to fit into the shijo structure. Do we have any questions today, though?